Well, we had a change of fighters once again. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, great fight place, has now become the fight capital of the world, trying to take it away from Las Vegas. But Robert Whittaker's opponent, Khamzat Chimaev, had to pull out due to illness. He's had this problem since getting COVID, it seems like, because this is a guy, Josh, who in his first three fights, they happened within basically 2 months' time. I think a week apart on one of them. You know, he was the guy that everyone was going, man, he's just going to keep fighting and stuff. Ever since he got sick, he's had nothing but problems getting himself prepared. He gets into training camp, and all of a sudden, he gets sick again, and he's unable. You can take a look. I believe on his record, he had 3 cancellations with fights with Leon Edwards. I mean, he has just been in that groove where he cannot get himself to the fight in time. What's going on with Mr. Chimaev?
I mean, I would say it has something to do with the COVID situation because, he was on fire up until that moment, and then he got COVID, and he had problems after that, basically with his conditioning, his cardio, he was getting ill almost every time he got deep into camps. Basically what happens is you start to tear your body down, and your body's not fully recovered from, say, COVID, and I've seen this happen with staph infections. I've seen this happen with other people having the flu, having pneumonia, that type of stuff. They try to jump into camp, and as they got closer to the fight and their body started to break down, it made it easier for them to get sick. I've seen this several times, and not maybe to this extent, but I look at it and I think to myself, he's got probably some scar tissue around his lungs from the COVID situation. I also had read something along the lines of fighters and athletes that got COVID and tried to keep training while they had COVID, or they came back too soon, were actually doing a lot more damage to their lungs. And he seems like a damn maniac that would just be like, oh, I'm just a little bit sick. Let's just keep pushing through. I'm okay. I'm going to get better. And then it got worse. And I've seen it. I've heard about this also too, but I've seen it a couple of times out of AKA too. Guys that got COVID, they tried to come back, and they had their duration of say 5 to 10 days off, thinking they could come back. And when they came back, they weren't the same. And I don't know if they still have it that way now, but I know that when they came back, they just couldn't get that. They couldn't get that deep breath. They had a hard time breathing for probably close to 2 or 3 months. How much damage did he do to his lungs by trying to come back too soon and train?
My farm needs the earth, the air, and the water. I get my energy going on Element Electrolyte Drink Mix. Clean, good-tasting energy that feeds me like I feed my plants and animals. And after a long day on the tractor, when it's time to shoot the podcast, I drink Element so that I can stay energized and stay salty. Let's get it on. If you recall, when he got COVID, he talked about retiring. Yeah. He says, I can't do this anymore. And he talked about retiring, and then, it was told, talk to a bunch of people, and they said, no, you're going to be fine. And he did come back, but he talked about it because he felt like he was never going to be the same, and it seems like it has had a lasting effect upon him.
It must, because we see his fights though, John. Like, I don't know what he was like past round 1, because I had never seen him past round 1 into 2 or 3. You know what I mean?
I saw him in the second round.
And then when we see him go into the second and third rounds, finally against guys like Gilbert Burns and other fighters, you're like, wow, you're not the same fighter in rounds 2 and 3. Is that because of COVID? Were you this way when you were younger or before pre-COVID? And there's just no answers, because we don't have those answers. We don't know what he would have been like. So where do we, as a promoter, what do? His upside could be so much if you can get him in the cage. And as a promoter, what are you thinking to yourself? You're no good to me unless I can get you in the cage.
You're stuck. I mean, everything about him is perfect for you when you look and say, man, he can fight, because you never want to, put your, all of your, marbles in the jar out there with someone that is limited. He's not limited. He is a talented guy. We've seen that. He can fight in the stand-up game. His wrestling is fantastic. Great ground control. He's young. He's 30 years old, so he's got a lot of time left. He's got all the things that you, as the UFC, you're sitting there saying, yeah, I want to put this marketing behind you. And they were, but then things started to get, in their way, and it started to hamper all of his progression. And now you're in that position of, look, he's good enough to win the championship. But then what happens when your champion can't fight? It's one of those things you got to think about if you're the UFC. Is this a guy that I want to have fight for the championship when I can't get him into normal? Yeah, it's a main event, but I can't get him into a normal fight without him having to pull out.
And that warrants what Dana's comments are. It says, Khamzat Chimaev's consistent health issues here at MMA Junkie says tough to deal with. And I understand as a promoter, you keep booking it, you keep selling tickets based on it. He's probably telling Saudi Arabia it's based on Chimaev being on the card. Like they worked this card around to have Chimaev on there and other fighters on there because they wanted those fighters in Saudi Arabia to be on this show. Then Chimaev pulls out. And it goes on. Like I'm going to go ahead and read a couple little things here. It says specific to Chimaev's issues remain confirmed, though management told MMA Junkie on Monday the rumors the latest setback could lead to retirement are absolutely not true. As long as he's not contemplating retirement now, I feel like there's almost like a light at the end of the tunnel is what I'm gathering from people as well. Saying that like this is just, it seems like he keeps getting sick. But look, I was a fighter that had a run of bad luck. I was always hurt. It got to the point, which is going to bring me to the next comments of Dana White, is I was always getting injured. I was always kind of getting either staph or getting sick during like camps and stuff too, like right before. Well, I was running myself into the ground, and it made it easier for me to get hurt. It made it easier for me to get, the flu and get sick or get pneumonia and all those things. And so, Dana White got kind of a little upset about it. It was like, look, bro, we've booked you for a year and a half now. Like, we got to have you fight. And Sean Shelby still to this day says, you're the first fighter and still to have the record for the fighter that we signed. And it took you almost 2 years to actually fight you. It's like, you're the one that has the record for the longest fighter we signed and then took this long to actually fight because you were always getting hurt. And Dana goes on, and he goes, the problem is that we really don't know what's going on, White said. Every time this guy gets close to a fight, I saw video footage of him violently ill on the ground, and he was hospitalized again. Says he hadn't trained for like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5. I can't remember what the number was, but we could not put him into a fight next week. Lately, Dana goes on to say, it's been hard to get him into the octagon. Every time he gets close to fighting, he gets really sick. I don't know what to say. It's not like he's over here in this country and we've had doctors look at him or anything like that. It's sort of out of touch. So it's tough to deal with. I have had this personal experience with that long duration of me not being able to fight for the UFC after they had signed me 2 years before. Dana finally got fed up. He's like, we're flying you out to Vegas. We're going to have you see all our doctors. I spent 2 days driving from doctor to doctor to doctor, doing blood work. Remember the witch doctor guy they call you? What's his name there, John? Steve. Dr. Steve. I was having some neck issues and some low back sciatic issues, and he was working on me for 2 days. And then I got blood work done. I saw acupuncture. They took me everywhere. I was like, man, I never want to see a doctor again in my life. But the UFC was looking to basically for an ROI on their investment. They wanted some sort of return on their investment and basically saying like, hey, what can we do to get you fixed? They can't do that because he can't get a visa to come in the country.
Yeah.
Now, those are all separate issues on this.
Well, it's all issues, and it's issues that become compounded and to the point where you look and you go, man, he's a great fighter. He's undefeated. The guy who's taking his place, the only guy that he's lost to is Khamzat. I watched the fight, and I thought they did a great job in taking Aliskerov off of the card that recently was done, putting him into that main event against Whittaker. Whittaker did not get an easier opponent. He got us,
similar, if not a little bit harder.
Tough fight, very similar opponent, and you look and it's like, if you're the UFC, you've got this really special thing, but you can't use it at times. You can't get it into your country that you promote most of your fights out of. You can't get it booked on a show that's outside of the country because it ends up having to pull out due to illness and things. You're in this very tough position where you know what you have, and you know that it could be the champion. It has that ability, but you can't get it to fights. And so I totally understand the frustration. And Dana's in that position of, what do I do? Just keep on putting him and having him at times, okay, he can compete on this one and he beats a guy. And then everyone's clamoring, hey, he should be in a title fight. I can't put him in a title fight.
Yeah.
He's going to end up pulling out of that, or I'm going to have to get another opponent to be there, as they have done on many occasions, to, be the backup. That's what you're going to have to do with him. But do you really want a guy that's in this position to be the guy holding your belt when it seems like he's having a hard time? There's a guy that he started off all these fights in a row real fast, and then it's been a hard road to get him into the cage and be healthy.
You know what it's like, John? It's like you work so hard. Let's just say you work so hard. You have a day job that's like 14 hours a day, but you can finally afford to buy that Ferrari. You can only drive that Ferrari on the weekends because you work in construction sites. And guess what? Every weekend it hails. You're just like,
Yeah.
I want to drive my Ferrari that I worked so hard for. Like Dana going, I have this Ferrari in the garage.
That's really what it is.
I can't get out of the damn garage because it's fucking always hailing.
That's exactly what it is. And you look, and I can understand the frustration that Dana has as the promoter. But luckily, he's got a bunch of other guys. But you keep looking at that and going, I know how good that is.
But can you imagine how frustrated Chimaev is? I'm right there being UFC champion or potential being UFC champion. I have the title shot in the palms and right there on my fingertips and the palms of my hands.
It's happened before. We've had people that were special and they never got there based upon health, injuries, things like that.
What was the guy at 155 that that was supposed to fight for the title against Pettis instead of me? Grant Neal.
TJ Grant. No,
TJ Grant. I keep saying Grant Neal. Gosh damn, totally different.
Grant Neal's a good fighter, but he's not TJ Grant. They're different weight classes.
Yeah, totally look different too.
Yes, they do.
I mean, I get.
Yeah, TJ Grant was in line. He was the next guy to get the shot. Concussions did him in, and he said, "That's it."
Never fought again. Haven't seen him. Nope. Haven't heard or seen from him since. Man, that's so weird. Look, these things can happen. I'm hoping that he can dig himself out. He's still young. What is he, 27, 28, Chimaev?
No. Chimaev is now 30.
Oh, is he 30 now?
He's 30.
Sure. Man. Okay, he's 30 years old, though. Maybe you still got 4 to 5 more years. You just got to it's got to come right. So I just wish that they could get him here to the States. I don't want to say anything because I know he's from Sweden and I know they have universal health care. So I don't want to say anything, but it would be nice to get him here to the States and see kind of some specialists.
Look, here's the problem. I'll say it right out. Here's the problem with universal health care is if you are in that position where you say, I have this problem, then they put you on a list and eventually you get to go there. So, we'll say that you hurt your shoulder and they'll say, okay, 9 months from now, you'll have surgery on it. He's a professional athlete. You can't wait 9 months. This is his career. That's universal.
He's got to get it fixed, though. Whatever it is, he's got to be seen. He's got to get it fixed. I'm surprised he hasn't flown to Saudi Arabia or to Dubai and seen the specialists or doctors there. He's got to do something about getting this treated. I do know this. There was a guy that I've trained with, and I know Chris Brennan owns a great facility here in Frisco. His son, Lucas Brennan, fights for Bellator. They've got
the West Side
Strangler. He actually ended up getting stem cell treatment on his lungs and saw a 30% increase.
I did not know they could do that.
So they do an IV and they also do like an injection, I think near or close to something like that to the lungs. But you guys check out Chris Brennan on Instagram. He will give you guys updates on how his lung recovery is because his lungs were damaged during COVID. And so he went and he did the stem cell treatments. He still cannot fly, puts too much pressure on his lungs, but he said it's gotten a lot better, about 30% better since getting the stem cell treatments. He's actually going back, I think, for another round here shortly. He just did his 6-month check-in. And so I think either he just got his new stem cells injected into there or he's getting them here shortly. So either way, if you guys have lung damage, maybe start taking a look into that CPI stem cell treatments that are down in Tijuana. Great facility there with some of my friends. So check them out. They did wonders for my right knee, my right hip, and my neck. Absolute wonders for those 3 things. So also had my wrist done. It didn't take as well, but my knee way better, right hip way better. My neck feels so good. I can look up to the sky with no pain. Yeah, John, very envious of this. But hey, guys, I'm really hoping that We see Chimaev back in the cage. I don't care if it's at 70 or back at 85, but I can understand Dana's frustration, but there's nothing you can do about it. You've got this Ferrari sitting in the garage. You know that is going to be fun when the sun comes out. It's worth hanging out for.
That's it.